righty, welcome everybody. Welcome to the special edition of Live 270 brought to you by Brownsville Tech Live. And in the house tonight, we've got Eddie Garcia. He is currently running for Cameron County Tax Assessor Collector. Mr. Garcia, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for accepting our invitation. I will say I'm very proud to have you, and I'm glad that you're actually the first Democrat to actually appear on our show.
Well, I'm honored to be here, and it's very important for the general public, the voters, to get to know their candidates and get to understand who we are.
Yeah, yeah. There's no doubt that, it's important for the voters out there, especially I think we've got less than a month to go before the election. I think early voting starts even sometime towards this month, right? Correct?
February 20th through March 1st is early voting, and then March 5th is the election day.
Yes, and I want to remind everybody because a few people have made mistakes when they actually go vote. They need to specifically ask which ballot they want to vote for. I've seen many times people get the wrong ballot, they can't return it, so it's very important that if you're voting Democrat, you ask for a Democratic ballot, and if you're voting Republican, you ask for a Republican ballot. So
That's correct. During these primary elections, that's the way it is. And then in November, well, they can vote across the lines.
absolutely, absolutely. So, Mr. Garcia, just to give the viewers out there that may not know who you are, can you give us a little bit about yourself, where you're
Well,
from, what you've done,
yes,
and
my name's Eddie Garcia, like we've been saying, and I was born here in Brownsville. But my parents at the time, it was my younger sister and myself out of six that we were born here in Brownsville. So I attended school in Mexico at an elementary called Jose Adolfo Lopez Mateos. Uh, I lived in Matamoros for my first 8 years or so. Then I attended Puget Elementary, Clearwater Elementary, Central Junior High, Hannah High School, and eventually I graduated from Porter High School in 1984 and attended Texas Southmost College as well. So that's pretty much, what who I am. And well, as far as jobs are concerned, I started working at an early age. I joined the workforce in my junior year of high school at a grocery store called Foodland or Warehouse Grocery right there on Mexico Boulevard. Later, I joined the police force and retired honorably after 32 years of service. And I'm also an Air Force veteran, and I got up to the rank of sergeant there in the Air Force.
well, it's good to know that I'm talking to a fellow Porter graduate. I graduated actually in 1989, just 4 years after you did. So we're both Porter
Once a cowboy,
Cowboys.
always a cowboy.
Always a cowboy, that's for sure. Well, definitely one of the things I wanted to ask you is what made you decide to run for county tax assessor collector? I mean, I know you're currently serving right now as a BISD school board member.
Well, after my retirement in 2020, my initial thoughts, I was going to run for city commission. But 2 weeks after my retirement, they called on me if I would consider running, or not running, but accept an appointment to the school board
Oh, that's
from
right. That's
January all the way through November when they were going to have the elections.
that is
And
correct.
my wife is a retired educator as well. So I heard my wife talking about the school board, well, not the school board, but the school district, everything that was going on and this and that. And once I got onto the school board and seeing things firsthand, I could turn my back on the school district. And that is the reason why I decided to run for the school board. I've been a public servant all my life. Again, because I served in the military, so I served my country. I served my community since I was a police officer for 32 years. And I serve on other boards as well. I serve on a financial board on the Brownsville City Employees Federal Credit Union. I've been on that board for over 20 years and held different positions within the board. And currently, I'm the vice president of that organization. I've also served, I'm serving on the school board. It's already been 4 years. My first 2 years, I was the board president for the school board. I also serve in a health center board. I've been on that health center board since 2008. 15 years. Out of those 15 years, 14 years, I was the chairman of the board. I decided to step down since I needed to concentrate on this campaign. So these are some of the things that I've done, and that's why I want to continue serving, the public.
Right. Well, one of the things that comes to mind, and I know that I had one of the other candidates from on the other side of the aisle that I think is running for the position as well, and I asked him, and I'll ask you this question: is what does what does a county tax assessor collector do? Can you give us a brief idea? Because a lot of people don't know.
Well, you know what? It's interesting because the tax office is a constitutional office
Right.
that is charged with the duties by state statutes that to collect the ad valorem taxes. And these taxes are identified and valued by the Cameron Appraisal District.
Correct.
Under Chapter 6 of the tax code, the responsibilities of the tax assessor collector are primarily to collect the property taxes. Currently, the tax office collects the taxes for about 52 taxing entities. There's about 16 municipalities, 5 school districts, 4 drainage districts, 10 special districts like the Port of Brownsville, and 16 others. It also collects the beer, wine, and liquor licensing fees. So
Wow.
this office is extremely important.
Right. I didn't
Go ahead,
realize
Dan.
there was that many taxing entities. I mean, I know that when I get my appraisal district letter, I guess every May, I think it's every May. Uh, I see BISD, I see South Texas ISD, I see, the city of Brownsville, BISD, and then of course you're correct. I also have a few special districts because I live over here by in the Hudson properties. I have to pay a special mud district or water district
Yeah,
or
the
something. I
mud
can't.
fees.
Yeah,
Yeah,
mud fee.
and it's different entities, like I said, because here we pay the Port of Brownsville. In Harlingen, they pay the Port of Harlingen. So
Uh-huh.
there's many different entities that the tax assessor's office collects these taxes from.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you, what do you think you bring to the position as far as, what professional qualifications that you've done in the past do you think that will enhance the position should you be elected?
Leadership.
Hmm.
Leadership is extremely important. Like I said earlier, uh, within the police department, I held many different responsibilities that were very challenging.
Hmm.
Of course, everyone starts as a patrol officer. Luckily, then I went on to become a detective. I worked with the youth services division. So I dealt with the troubled youth.
Yeah.
And it was an opportunity that gave me to deal with these children, with these young adults,
Hmm.
uh, and try to help them out. I tried talking to them. And it's interesting because now, as adults, when they come across me, they come to me and they ask me, "Do you remember me?" And of course, I mean, they were anywhere between 10 and 16 years of age.
Right.
So it's very rewarding to have these young men now come over and let me know that there was a difference that was made during that process.
Yeah.
Um, I also dealt with emergency management during Ben Reina, the chief, and Victor Rodriguez. I was assigned as an assistant emergency management coordinator.
Hmm.
Later on, I dealt with purchasing. I was in charge of going out and getting the RFPs, RFQs for the uniforms, leather gear, stuff like that. I was in charge of the property and evidence division, something that not just anybody can go in there. That's an extremely responsible uh, position to have because it's dealing with any evidence that gets collected involving crimes, anyway
Right.
from anything all the way up to murders.
Right.
So these are things. I was a training officer. I was a background investigator. So I did many different things within the department. And like I stated earlier, also I've been a leader in a health center board. I've been a leader at an education board. I've been a leader in a financial board. And something that I failed to mention was that during my term from 2012 to 2016, I served on a National Advisory Council on Migrant Health. That position I applied for through a letter to the United States Secretary of Health. And I was selected one of 16 members from throughout the United States. And what we did in that advisory council is we traveled throughout the US once every quarter, and we met with migrant workers, and then eventually we formulated a letter of recommendation to the US Secretary of Health. My fourth year in that council, I was the acting chair for that organization as well. So leadership is something that I bring to the table that I've been in leadership positions.
Well, that's good to know because, a lot of times, we elect people that don't have qualifications, and it's good to know that we've got a public servant like yourself that's had more than 30 years of experience in various capacities. So that is something positive, I think, that we definitely want to see our future leaders have. One of the things that I want to talk a little bit about is what you foresee as what the biggest issues right now are with the current tax assessor collector office. What do you think the big two or three issues are right now that you would like to improve?
Well, something that I failed to mention, also going back to why is it that I want to run now for this position? With the property evaluations that just recently happened, that's a big concern.
Right,
Concerns coming from the taxpayers, what they're having to go through as a result of all this.
right,
The struggles that our taxpayers are going through are real. And I know what it is, what these struggles are, because I lived that with my parents.
yeah,
My parents were, for example, my dad was, a minimum wage employee.
right,
And he did that for 42 years with the Harlingen Irrigation District #1. My mother was a cook. So I know the struggles that people go through, what it is, to try to make ends meet. So because of this is why I want to continue to run now for this position. I hear many different things that are happening within the office. And some of the things that we need to do is we need to help educate people on how it is that they can help themselves in the during tax season.
mm-hmm,
Educating them on simple things like homestead exemption. Are they 65 and over? You know, very simple things that the tax office should be doing,
right,
helping them out. And there's plenty more that can be done,
yeah,
but these are some of the things. Aside from that, also, some of the things that I hear that the tax office needs to do is represent Cameron County.
right,
Some of the complaints or concerns, I should say, from our taxpayers is that uh, the representative from that office doesn't make it out throughout Cameron County.
Mm,
La Feria, Santa Rosa, Harlingen, Rio Hondo, South Padre Island, they are part of Cameron County.
mm-hmm.
It's not just Brownsville. And that is something that any taxpayer, or I should say, any elected official gets elected by those taxpayers, and we represent them. We should not forget them. They brought us to the office. We should be there for them. One of the things that I've been telling people when I've been walking around is in my push cards, there's a telephone number. That telephone number, if they were to go onto the BISD website, that telephone number is there.
Mm-hmm.
So that if anyone has any complaints, ideas, concerns, they can call. And that is exactly what I intend to do once I go into this office.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I know from my own personal experience in the past with the tax office has been the lack of customer service. I can tell you that a few years back, they had an office over at Southmost, and by the way, I think they just opened one recently. But they used to be in the what was the Brownsville
Southwest
Police Department.
Community Network Center.
Right. Yeah, the BPD was there and so forth. And I kid you not, one time I went there because I needed to renew my license plates, and the line was long. Well, it wasn't that long. It was like five people ahead of me. And it just so happened that it was like maybe 11:50 in the morning, and I finally got to the window, and the girl just shut the window and said, "Sorry, I got to go to lunch. See you later. Come back after one." And I'm like, "Really?" It's
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because customer service is extremely important.
yeah.
Like I said that I started working when I was a junior in high school. By the time that I graduated from high school, I was an assistant manager.
Hmm.
And one of the first things that I told the employees is if there's any issues, any complaints, let me know.
Yeah.
Let me take care of them, you know. And yes, customer service is very important.
Yeah.
And it is great to have all these offices, but I'm a firm believer that it's not about quantity of offices. It's about the quality of service that is provided.
Yeah.
So quantity, no. Quality, yes.
Yeah.
Now, there's a new office that's being opened. As a matter of fact, tomorrow is the ribbon cutting ceremonies, which is, do I agree with that? No. And I'll tell you why.
Hmm.
Like you mentioned, the offices were, services were being provided there at the Southmost Center. And the person that's in charge of that office during the groundbreaking stated that the chief of police had reached out to him and asked him if he needed more space to provide services.
Hmm.
And his response was, no, I'm going to open a new office.
Mm.
Now, how fiscal responsible is that when you have free space, no
Right.
overhead being provided, and now you're spending $2.8 million. That's one.
Yeah.
Now you're going to have overhead. That's two. And now you're having to employ more employees.
Right.
So while quantity does not supersede quality. And
Right.
that is something that we need to take a look at and improve on that. And I know what you're talking about because during my time with the police department, I worked out of the Southmost Community Network Center. So I know the operation on how all that worked.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I wanted to talk to you a little bit about is I know that there's been some outsourcing to some private entities. There's one here by my house. And I'll be honest with you, I prefer going there because I don't have to wait in line. If I go downtown, I have to wait. I may have to wait in the line. What's your position on expanding that? I mean, they seem to be doing a pretty decent job. I like it, but I don't know how. I don't think it's more expensive, or is it more expensive to renew your license in, like, for example, I'll name the outfit. It's Gateway. I think their name is Gateway. I mean, is that, am I paying more when I use them versus going down to the office downtown, or?
I don't know. I can't answer that, but
Yeah,
I know that at the banks, Lone Star National Banks, it is a free service that is provided. That's another location
yeah,
where people can go and pay their taxes. And it's something, again, that it goes back to uh, being able to let the public know, be more accessible. Do I believe in partnerships? Most definitely, I do believe in partnerships
yeah,
as long as there's no excessive fees. I would like for no fees,
yeah,
but if there is, it would have to be limited fees. And as long as it's a benefit both to the public and to the county.
yeah. Now, as you know, we started off as a technology show, and one of the things I asked one of the other candidates prior was, maybe one of the things we could do, especially with the long lines downtown, is introducing kiosks, like they have at the airport, where now you don't, when you go to the airport, you don't have to go to the counter and do the normal kind of stuff. Would you be willing to look at that, as far as kiosks for certain things?
Definitely, that is something to look at.
Yeah,
And already, I mean, people can pay their taxes online as well.
correct, correct.
So that is something that definitely people need to, be informed. We need to do more of an education to the taxpayers on the services that are being provided and how they can make it easier and simpler for them. One of the things, like whenever there's long lines there at the main office, it's as simple as, well, one of the things that I hear is that sometimes there's only 6 lanes open inside, and there's like 5, 10 other lanes inside closed, and you have people in the background walking around.
Yeah,
Well, you know what? Why can't we have one of those personnel come up front, let the general public know, that there's other locations where they can go and expedite the process for themselves.
right.
For example, like you said, this place that's close to your residence or to the banks, it doesn't take but a couple of minutes to let the public know you don't have to wait in line. There's these other places where you can do it. And yes, kiosks would be something that uh, can be done, and you can have one employee going around assisting if somebody needs extra assistance in the process.
Right.
So other things that we need to take a look at that I hear are the hours of operation. That is something that we need to take a look at to, again, help the public not lose any time from their work.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that I wanted to talk a little bit about, and you mentioned it with regards to taxes, and I didn't know this until the other candidate that I interviewed a while back mentioned it, was I wasn't aware that there was actually payment plans available that the taxpayer could take advantage of it. I mean, I remember just like you, my parents, October would come around and they knew that property taxes were due, and there they were trying to figure out how they were going to pay because they had up to January. But I had no idea there was payment plans available, you know.
Yes, there is, because pretty much every entity, they have their own tax collection attorneys.
Hmm.
So the same thing with the tax assessor collector's office.
Right.
And that is something that I want to take a look at as well once I'm in the I'm in office, once I get elected. My understanding is that the tax collection attorneys, uh, they have been there already for over 10 years.
Mm.
And my concern is the fees that are being charged,
Right.
people that are back in taxes, if these are high fees that are being paid for, well, guess what? That payment is going to be really not much going into the principal of those taxes.
Hmm.
It's going to be going to those tax collection attorneys.
Hmm.
So it's time that we go out there and set up RFPs, RFQs, whatever it is, to once again look after the best interest of the taxpayer. And that is by doing that. You know,
Right.
we did that at the school district, trying to make what how can the organization help themselves and help the public. That is extremely important. And again, it's the leadership that needs to take action, even though the recommendation may be done by me, the uh, county commissioners are going to have to approve something like that. But it's something that I am going to fight for because the taxpayer deserves representation if they elect me.
Well, that's definitely a good thing, sir. One of the things I wanted to talk a little bit about was, and it's not news, obviously it happened, but what ethical standards do you think need to be employed within the department to ensure that personal conflicts of interests don't exist? I mean, we had the current assessor-collector a few years ago, get indicted. I have no idea what the whole deal was, right? But what can we do to ensure that that doesn't happen again? That there's no conflict of interests, you know, within the
Well, most
office.
organizations do have something in place that they need to, every year, they have to file a conflict of interest form. And
Uh-huh.
that's something that definitely someone needs to be looking after that, whether it be the auditor's office, you know, uh, it's important that somebody oversees because nobody is above the law. And I can tell you, I sleep comfortable at night. I have nothing to worry about.
Mhm.
And I am going to bring that, and it's going to be important that that continues to be done because it's extremely important. Nobody wants to pay taxes, but unfortunately, we do, and
Yeah,
we need to make sure that that office is held accountable for it.
absolutely. Well, what do you think about term limits? I mean, obviously, the current occupant of the office has been there for like over 30 years. What do you think?
35 years.
35 years. I'm sorry, 35 years. What do you think about that? I mean, should there be a term limit on this office as well as any other office? Or do you think people should just be rewarded over and over again every time there's an election? I mean, 35 years is a lot of years. I can tell you that.
It sure is. One of the things that they're saying is, well, what experience do you have in tax collection service? Well, I don't,
Yeah,
because that office has been held by one individual for 35 years.
right.
So, what do I think about term limits? It's a double-edged sword because one, if you have a person that is doing a great job, wonderful. But if you have a person that is not, well, that's where people end up losing in that. So
Right.
it's good and bad.
Yeah.
Now, nobody has really ever run for this position. He's been there, what, since 1998, something like that.
Yeah.
So nobody has had the opportunity, but then again, nobody has decided to run.
Yeah.
And I couldn't run. I mean, I was fully employed and I enjoyed my 32 years as a police officer. And now is the time. I felt that it was needed as a result of the uh, increase on property evaluations, the concerns again of the public, the customer service, all these things is the reason why I decided to launch myself to run for this position.
Yeah. Well, definitely, like I said, I'm with you when it comes to term limits. I mean, I've been on both sides of the issue with regards to them. Term limits, is something that it is a double-edged sword because, for example, people that run for Congress, for congressmen, for example, they get elected every 2 years. Well, they get elected once, and by the time you know it, they're already running for re-election. So they really don't get to do a whole lot, because they're constantly trying to run for re-election. And at the same time, you also have people that are doing a good job, but they may only be able to run for 2 terms or 3 terms, and then you end up with somebody else that you really don't want. So it is a double-edged sword. But definitely 35 years is a lot of years. And I think that, I mean, I often wonder, why didn't anybody just step up and run? It almost seems like, nobody wanted to. But but yeah, I mean, definitely 35 years is quite a bit. I mean, not to be honest with you, a whole lot of people out there in the private sector don't even last 20 years at a normal job just because of the nature of the business.
Right.
You know?
Well, you know what? And the interesting thing about the requirements for this office, uh, they're very simple requirements.
Yeah.
You need to be a U.S. citizen, reside in Texas for the last 12 months, reside in Cameron County for the past 6 months, be a registered voter in the county, be at least 18 years of age, not have a felony conviction, and do 20 hours of continuing education once you're in office within the first 90 days.
Yeah.
So, why? I don't know, but there's a lot of qualified people out there. And that's the reason why I'm doing this, because I feel that I'm qualified. I have the leadership to be able to take over this office.
Yeah. All righty. Well, one of the other things I wanted to kind of touch on a little bit is you're a veteran. How long were you in the Air Force again?
I did 6 years,
Okay.
and let me tell you, it was wonderful. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it. I got the opportunity to travel abroad.
Yeah.
I was in Puerto Rico. I went to Germany twice. So it was wonderful,
Yeah.
And of course, I joined the Air Force, and I thank the other branches, all those service people serving right now. It's not easy,
Yeah.
and but you know what? We're a free country thanks to those servicemen and service women out there.
Yeah.
So thank you for your service.
Yeah. I was going to ask you because you said you were 32 years as a Brownsville Police Department officer. Were you a motorcycle cop by any chance?
Actually, no.
Okay,
I
that's
was a
good.
traffic
That's good. That's
enforcement
good. That's
officer.
good.
But let me tell you about the motorcycle officers. A lot of people are like, "Oh man, they're so mean." Unfortunately, if you get pulled over by a motorcycle officer, 99% you're going to get a citation. And the reason being is that is their job assignment. A
Ah,
lot of people think, oh, they have quotas to meet. No, they don't have quotas to meet. It's illegal. But they are assigned specifically to that. So, yes, they are expected to issue citations.
okay.
That is their primary function. And the most important thing is they do give breaks,
Yeah.
but that comes with attitude. Give respect, and you never know. You might get a break. When I did traffic enforcement, I did it in a police car. I was the first car that had no lights on the outside, that
Oh,
were all
wow.
internal lights. That's when the expressway was being widened with
Uh-huh.
all the overpasses. That was my primary function, to be out there on the expressway. And very interesting.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to ask that because I wasn't sure if you'd been a motorcycle cop. And honestly, today was the first time that I've seen one here on this part of town. Typically, I'll see them down on Coffeeport, 802 and that. But this is the first time I was driving home today, picking up my daughter from school, and I told my daughter, I said, "Look, Chrissy, there's a motorcycle cop on this side." I hadn't seen one before. How many motorcycle cops do we have in this city these days?
I really don't know at this point
Yeah.
in time, but what happens at times is when there's certain things happening on a certain part of town, let's say an increase in accidents and stuff like that, or complaints, there's special assignments that are given for
Uh-huh.
these officers to go out there and patrol those areas.
Okay.
So that could be one of the reasons why.
Yeah, I see DPS quite a bit here on Paredes, but rarely do I see a motorcycle cop. And today was the first time, and I was like, "Oh wow, oh man, I hope they're not going to be here too long, you know." Uh, but yeah, no. Well, you want to give some closing comments or thought to the audience with regards to to yourself?
What I want to say that as Cameron County Tax Assessor Collector, I am going to emphasize the important pillars of integrity and service. The public should have a high level of confidence that their hard-earned tax dollars are being handled with the utmost integrity. No one, like I said earlier, no one wants to pay taxes, but we all do.
Right.
And the handling to have to pay taxes, again, we need to make sure that every penny goes to the appropriate entity. Uh, it's a solemn responsibility and should be treated as such. And that's something that I'm going to do. Now, I'm enjoying campaigning throughout the county. I'm sharing my vision for the continued improvement of this tax office. But more importantly, uh, I want to listen to the ideas from the public about how we can improve the service to every taxpayer that calls Cameron County home. This is a great place to live, and I want to help to make it even better. That's what I want to do. And that's what I'm bringing to the table once I'm elected as your next tax assessor collector.
Well, Mr. Garcia, it was a pleasure to have you on tonight. I hope I wasn't too tough on you. I don't think I was. But
No,
I,
you know what? And it's good. I'm glad, and I hope to have other candidates come up to this podcast. Thank you for having me here. And again, I encourage for our taxpayers and every citizen out there to go out and vote. That's the only way that change is going to happen. Make your voice count.
yeah. Well, I did tell you I wasn't going to have a surprise question, but I am going to ask you this question. Sunday, San Francisco or Kansas City?
You know what? There, there's a lot. It's going to be interesting. They both wear red.
Yeah,
I'm going to go with Kansas City because Mahomes came from Texas Tech.
yeah,
Even though it's hook 'em horns,
yeah.
we'll be back next year.
Well, tomorrow, as you know, we also have a sports podcast. We've been doing a sports podcast since August, and so we're going to have a preview tomorrow of the upcoming game. So we'll be looking at statistics and so forth. So to be honest with you, I was actually hoping for the Lions last week to have done well.
I agree with you. I would have loved to have seen them win their first Super Bowl
It would have been
or at least
great.
make it there.
I mean, they hadn't even been to the playoffs since 1957. That is just incredible, you know? But
Well, I feel sorry for Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders was a great back that the yards that he had, he did them himself,
yeah,
unlike other backs.
right.
And I would have liked to have seen Barry Sanders make it.
Yeah,
And that's why I was hoping for the Lions as well.
right.
But now we're going for the Chiefs.
That's right. And of course, next year will be our year, just like every year.
That's right. Hey, at least we have front row seats. That's
That's
for
right.
sure.
That's right. Comfortable front row seats. All righty, Mr. Garcia. Well, it was a pleasure having you on tonight. Everybody, there's early voting starting on what day?
It's going to be February 20th through March 1st, Election Day. It's going to be March 5th. Again, make sure that you either select Republican or Democrat. During general election in November, that is when you can cross lines and vote across party lines.
And as always, regardless of what your political affiliation is, get out there and vote, because without you voting, you don't have a voice.
That's right.
That's right. All right, Mr. Garcia. Well, you have a great evening. Good luck. And I hope to have you back after you're elected.
Definitely. And don't forget Eddie Garcia for Tax Assessor Collector.
All righty. Thank you, sir. Good night.
Good night.